be here with you. Ed Ponsi here, your FX educator, here on behalf of FX Street. Once again, for our second session of the day. Hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Never a dull moment in our world of Forex. It's never a dull moment at all. Brexit just never seems to go away. We're going to take a look now. The pound is moving again. Now it's going the other way. And you've got to wonder, right? The market still seems kind of like it's trying to figure this out, right? We saw a lot of volatility around the decision. There you see the huge spike in ATR. That shows you a big spike in volatility. Sorry about that. Okay. And then, we dropped off a bit. We dropped off because most of the rhetoric that we've been hearing has been very pro-Brexit from Prime Minister Elaine May, from Brexit Minister Davis, even from Jeremy Corbyn of the Labour Party. So it seems like Brexit is a go. But there are so many things now that can happen and can go wrong. So this is a very fluid situation. This is all subject to change. And this is why I'm leaving it alone for now. On our earlier session, we laid out a strategy for trading Euro-US dollar based on this inverted head and shoulders. We have the inverted head and shoulders. We have the 10-day moving average acting as support. And we're using the ATR as our stop. Now, if you missed that session, it's archived. So please just go back and watch the earlier session. And you can get all the details of our Euro-US dollar setup. Hope you enjoy that. Okay, it's time to move on. Now, another interesting thing that's been happening, when I see that inverted head and shoulders, it reminds me that we're beginning to see similar patterns in strange places. I want to teach you something today about these patterns. Inverted head and shoulders after a downtrend is a reversal pattern. It means the price is going to go higher. Everybody, not everybody, but let's just say most people are aware of this. Head and shoulders in an uptrend, inverted head and shoulders in a downtrend are reversal patterns. It's really the point where lower highs and lower lows changes into higher highs and higher lows. If you look at the chart, suddenly now it's making higher highs and higher lows, whereas before it was making lower highs and lower lows. So a head and shoulders, you could define it as the spot where higher highs and higher lows changes to lower highs and lower lows. Or in this case, the inverted head and shoulders would have the opposite definition. But, okay, most people know that, and certainly if you've been reading my books, you know that. But did you know FCX, for example, did you know when this pattern appears in an uptrend, what does it mean? It is not a reversal pattern. This is an inverted head and shoulders. Admittedly, it's not a pretty one, but it's there. And in an uptrend, the inverted head and shoulders means what? Reversal? No, continuation. Very good, Sandy. This is a continuation pattern. Excellent. A little bit of a sloppy neckline there, but I think you get the idea. This is how I would draw it right now. This is FCX, by the way, Freeport McMoran, and it's a mining stock. This is one stock. Look at the way this took off after the election. Here's the election, right? The U.S. presidential election. And the thing just rips. Now, this is also demonstrates that you can use FXED technique on stocks, right? Here we have the 10-day exponential moving average. And we see numerous hits on the 10-day exponential moving average. So a pullback to, at this point, it would be 15.24. A pullback to 15.24 could be a buying opportunity. But yeah, Sandy's right. That's a continuation pattern. This pattern says that it's going to go higher. Now look at this chart. What do you feel when you look at that? And I tell you that this is a buy, right? And look, I'm not giving you advice, but I'm just telling you that that symbol is bullish. Let's just say this is a bullish pattern, right? But it's already gone up so much, right? The stock doubled, basically. I think it went from 8 to 16. Did it go from 8 to 16? No, it went from 9 to 16. My bad. But it almost doubled, right? And then the pullback, and now it's all set up to buy. Right? And you're saying, but Ed, I can't buy it because it's already doubled. Let's look at it from a longer term perspective, right? First of all, it certainly was a lot higher back in 2015, right? And I'll make it a weekly and tell you that it was much, much higher still back in 2011. This stock went from 60 to 9. What else do you see here? There was another. Now this is kind of funny if you think about it. But there is an inverted head and shoulders here. Kinda. Where's the right shoulder? Oh, here it is. Like that. So on the weekly, this chart shows you two inverted head and shoulders. One of them is the reversal. And one of them is the continuation. Now, by the way, this has two right shoulders. Is it allowed to have two right shoulders? Absolutely. So, big picture, let me get rid of the moving average. We don't need that right now. Big picture, this is a reversal pattern called an inverted head and shoulders. That's the big picture. The smaller picture, this is a continuation pattern. It's the same pattern in a different spot. Right? Jack says a failed inverted head and shoulder August 2014. Let me go back. Yeah, they failed. Don't get me wrong. Gang, they fail. And they don't always work. I believe Jack's right. Watch this. Right, I saw the pattern a moment ago. Here it is. Jack's correct. And that's why you got to use a stop, right? You don't know if it's going to work. Look at that. Left head, right. I will say this, though. Does it really trigger? I don't know. I guess it depends how you draw that line. Yeah. It fails. It breaks out above this line and it fails. And when it fails and it goes back below that line, what do we got to do? We got to get out, right? Let me go weekly. Look at that, failed badly. All right, but it doesn't matter how it fails. It Doesn't matter if it drops to zero. You're not going to ride it all the way down, right? We don't do that around here. Don't hold those losses, gang. If it gets back under that line, when it breaks above that line, that's the buy signal. Buy signal is right here. At what point do you know the breakout has failed? It should be apparent right here. You get under that line. I'll make that line a dotted line. Once you break above that dotted line, it's time to buy. And this was something that would have had you buying right at the exact wrong moment. It just didn't work. And then it drops. When it drops back below that dotted line, that's when you know to get out. You know, you're just not going to sustain a large loss there. But look at the way it fails spectacularly, doesn't it? It fails quite spectacularly. The stock drops from 40 to 15, well, 40 to 20, right? From here to here is 40 to 20. That's cut in half, right? So yeah, they definitely do not all work out, right? But it's interesting that in this case, I will tell you this though, it's not a great example. And this is going to be for extra credit, but I want you to really think about the inverted head and shoulder that failed and this one here that we're looking at now. Because there's something that I love to say when it comes to technical analysis. It's a phrase that you've probably heard me say, or you've probably read it in something that I've wrote. Everything is defined by what? Ooh. Think about it. Everything is defined by what? Everything is defined by what precedes it. Everything is defined by what precedes it. The reason why I really like this inverted head and shoulders here, look what precedes it. Exactly, it's context. Look at the drop. I mean, it gets cut in half and then it falls some more, and really it goes from 40 to 9 at the worst point. But don't even count that. Just count this. What precedes it is a move from 40 to 15. And then the pattern begins. What precedes it is the stock was preceded by a very strong trend. This is a reversal pattern. But in order for a reversal pattern to have meaning, there first must be something to In order for a reversal pattern to have meaning, there first must be something to reverse. There must be something to... This is a reversal pattern after a huge directional move. That's why I like it. This reversal pattern kind of sort of comes after a down move, but not really. The price runs up into it. It's, in other words, you could make an argument that this failed head and shoulders, you could make an argument that the price came down into it. You could also make the argument that the price came up into it. You really can't make a clear argument that there was a huge downward move prior to that formation. But I can certainly make that argument here. You're going to lose 2/3 of the value, perhaps 3/4. No, closer to 2/3. 2/3 of the value, close to 2/3 of the value is going to be lost. In a rather dramatic fashion, too. I mean, there's no question that there's a big, sharp move here. So the context of this pattern is very different from the context of this pattern. I'm not picking on Jack. I just wanted to make a point You see, in technical analysis, everybody knows that an inverted head and shoulders is supposed to be bullish, but there might be something small or subtle, like the context, right? Everything is defined by what precedes it, is one of my favorite sayings. And like this top here, do you see this triple top? What precedes it? There's patterns all over this chart, aren't there? So there's definitely a triple top here, right? But whether or not that triple top has any meaning is based on what precedes it. What precedes it is a pretty good run. Look at that, lots of green candles, right? So we would say, all right, that one has a pretty good chance of working out. We'll put our line right there, and we'll measure, right? So the height of it, 59, and the depth of it, 45. From 45 to 59 is how far? 59 minus 45, 14, right? 14. And how far does it drop? 45 minus 14 would give you a target of what? 31. Boom. 31 is right here. 31 is right there. But this was a good play. Why? Because of what preceded it. This is not really a great play because it's not really preceded. It doesn't. Where's the big drop into it, right? So I favor this one quite a bit. And I'm just trying to make a point. And it's not just with head and shoulders. It's not just with triple tops. Really, it's with all technical analysis. Everything is defined by what precedes it. So if I see a shooting star pattern, it's all about context, right? If I see a shooting star up here after a massive run, then the shooting star has meaning. If the price is drifting sideways and I see a shooting star or a hammer, then it has no meaning. It has no meaning. Okay? It's a subtle difference, but it's a huge difference. What precedes the reverse head? This is Carlos. Carlos says on the instant feedback, what precedes the reverse head and shoulders is an environment where the market was overwhelmingly short. Most of the orders were on one side of the market. Yeah, that's a really good point, too. I mean, this is a hated stock. It's hated. I mean, it's not hated right now because Trump got elected and it's perceived to be a Trump stock. It's perceived that there will be less regulation, and a lot of regulation has to do with mining, and this is a mining company. So the perception is that it's a Trump stock. Big run, consolidation, right? But it's a continuation pattern. Should go higher. But it's all based on... But this was so hated, and Carlos is so right. It wasn't just heavily shorted. Like, the whole world was short this thing. People thought this company was going to go out of business, right? And isn't it true that, certain politicians were saying they were going to go after mining companies? Look, it gets under $5. Is that right? Is that even correct? I guess it is. So the stock goes, it's hated. It's utterly hated. The stock's going to go from 60 to $5. I mean, it is utterly hated as of early 2016. Just a massive move lower. I'm sure there are folks who got creamed in this. Why? Because every trend is littered with the broken accounts of people who tried to fight that trend. And so when I look at that chart, that's all whenever I look at a chart, I always think it could be an uptrend or a downtrend. But it more so downtrends because the less educated investors tend to be more bullish. And they're thinking it's a mining stock, it's great, it's cheap, I should buy it. But there were certain politicians who were saying we're going to put miners out of business. And the market looks like it believed it as of 1 year ago, early 2016. The market sure treated this stock like it was going to go out of business. All right. So context, right? Everything defined by what precedes it. I'll give you one more. This is on the weekly. So I'll tell you, I think I see it on the weekly, and then I'm going to push it out to a daily. But it looks to me like an inverted head and shoulders down here. And gosh, where was I? Why wasn't I buying this stock back then? I probably wasn't even focused on stocks at all at that moment, but that's after the whole market crashed, and you can even see there's something there. Now, that's context, right? Let me make it a daily. If I can go back that far in a daily. And holy cow, there it is, right? There it is. There she blows. Look at that. So, again, it was under 10, right? That's when it gets down to 6 every time. This wasn't because of anything specific to mining. It just looked like the whole world was going to end pretty much financially. All right. By the way, if you haven't seen The Big Short, whenever I look at this chart, not this specific chart, but whenever I look at things that crashed in 2008, I'm going to talk about context and definition. This goes from 60 to 6, right? And there's your pattern, right? It's all about context, right? It's all about context. Watch The Big Short if you haven't seen it. Look at that move. That's the stock market crash of 2008. When I think of the stock market crash of 2008, I think probably the best movie about that is The Big Short. Let's move on. Yeah, Carlos was right. And the sentiment was hideous on this stock. When looking at a head and shoulders, should we take into consideration the strength within the pattern by looking at impulsive moves, whether bullish or bearish candles? Now, I'm going to give you a very honest answer here, Carlos. I don't, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. It could matter. What Carlos is saying, look inside the pattern and look at the strength of the moves in one direction and the strength of the moves in the other direction. This makes perfect sense to me. Another thing you might want to look at if you're going to look at those moves, if you're not trading Forex, if you're looking at a stock chart, add volume. Are the up moves happening on high volume within the pattern? Are the down moves happening on low volume? So, yeah, I would agree with what Carlos is saying in terms of looking at the intensity of the move. And if it's a stock, you could even look at the volume of the move, which is, a footprint that really is kind of hard to hide if the big boys and girls start buying, they really can't hide their tracks, and that's why we love it. Okay? All right, good stuff. No, I Carlos's point spot on. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. That's not something that I personally have worried about that much in the past, but maybe I should, right? You look within that pattern and you see, okay, look, even within this pattern, look, big gap up, right? It's probably going to make it through. All right, lots of enthusiasm, lots of short covering. Right? The whole world hated this stock, thought it was going to go to zero, and then the shorts have to cover because then they find out, oh, right. And there's a lot of companies that fit this description, by the way. Like U.S. Steel was a company that until recently you could have probably made the argument that U.S. Steel was going to go out of business. Look at that. Crashes in 2009 and never comes back. Right? Never comes back. And from just over the past few years, right, we go from 45, and this bottoms out, interestingly, this bottoms out right around the same time as FCX, but this went from 45 to below 10. And suddenly Trump gets elected, and suddenly people say, you know what, this might be good to buy. Even now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, could be a bull flag. And this is a company people thought would go out of business. It's like, you don't make steel in the United States anymore. And now all of a sudden, it's in favor. There's your flag. Don't know if it's going to work. Has had a tremendous run, hasn't it? Stock tripled since the beginning of last year. It's just so much hate for stocks like U.S. Steel and Freeport-McMoRan. Anything to do with, mining and iron and steel and all that stuff, right? The perception is that Trump will be very friendly to these companies, but just remember this. Nobody wins a trade war, right? So let's see what happens. I am not going to judge. I'm going to withhold judgment. I'm going to reserve judgment. But I think the thing that worries me is I don't mind Trump throwing his weight around because the U.S. is the biggest economy in the world, and you might as well use that to your advantage, right? If you want to create jobs. That in itself doesn't bother me. What bothers me is if you do A, then other country does B, and in the end, is it going to be helpful? We don't know yet. Let's see. Let's wait and see. Let's reserve judgment, folks. Okay? It's a brave new world out there. All right, gang. Hey, thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate your participation and coming to hang out with me. Let's do it again soon. I'm not sure when I'm back. Check the schedule. Hopefully I'll speak to you again very soon. Everybody have a great day.